to Revenge with Lyra.
Hi, my name is Emily, and I remember the taste of blood before I remember the pain. The night of the accident is blurred glass and broken sirens. 1 minute, I was driving home after a late shift. The next, headlights swerved, metal screamed, and my body became nothing but shrapnel and shock. They said I was lucky to be alive. But lying in that sterile white hospital room, with tubes in my arms and stitches running down my side, I didn't feel lucky. I felt alone. Terrifyingly, cruelly alone. Because when I opened my phone that first morning, desperate for comfort, desperate to see someone from my family had checked in on me, the screen didn't show love. It showed laughter. The group chat, my own family's lifeline, was lit up with photos of my sister twirling in designer dresses, shopping bags lined at her feet. Caption after caption. Which one looks better? OMG, I'm spoiled.
Not one message about me.
Not one word about the crash. Not even a, is she okay? And I lay there, bruised ribs heaving, staring at that glowing screen while the nurse adjusted my fore. My heart wasn't breaking. It was shattering into glass. They knew. They all knew. And they chose sequins and champagne over me. That was the moment the air inside me changed. The moment silence became my shield. The moment revenge began planting its quiet, steady roots. Because if my family could abandon me in the hour I needed them most, then they had already lost me. And they didn't even know it yet. The days bled together under fluorescent lights. Beeping monitors. The sting of antiseptic. Nurses wheeling in trays I barely touched. But what cut deepest wasn't the pain stitched into my body. It was the silence. Not one footstep down the hall from my family. Not one voice calling my name.
Just me.
Me and the echo of the accident. Me and the weight of abandonment. I scrolled again and again through that cursed group chat, praying maybe I'd missed something. A "we're on our way," a "hang in there," a single damn emoji.
But no.
Just more photos. My sister flashing a new gold bracelet. My mom commenting, "Princess deserves it." Red heart. My dad joking about credit cards, maxed out. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But my stitches pulled when I tried, and all I could do was lay there, suffocating in the knowledge that I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased. On the third day, my voice cracked when I finally asked the nurse, "Has anyone called? Anyone asked for me?" She hesitated. The kind of hesitation that tells you the truth before the words come out.
No, sweetheart.
No one's called. And that was it. That was the fracture that would never heal. Because bones can be set, skin can be stitched, but the knowledge that your own blood can watch you bleed out and still look away? That's permanent. When I finally signed the discharge papers, I didn't feel like myself anymore. Still in my hospital gown, phone heavy in my hand, I walked out into the stale night air. And that's when it lit up. 64 missed calls. One message from my father. "Call us back now. It's serious." For a second, I thought maybe guilt had finally chewed its way through their hearts. Maybe they'd realized what they'd done. So I pressed call and braced myself for the voice on the other end. The line clicked. Static hissed. Then his voice, my father's voice, low, sharp, like he'd been pacing the entire time I was gone. "Where the hell have you been? Do you know what's happening?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat burned from all the words I'd swallowed in that hospital bed. "Where have you been?" I finally whispered. "I almost died. 3 nights alone in a hospital gown. And you're asking me where I've been." Silence. Then a scoff. Like my pain was nothing but background noise to whatever storm they were living in.
He didn't say sorry.
He didn't even ask if I could walk. Instead, his tone dropped even colder. "Your sister, she's gone missing. She was last seen after that shopping trip." My chest went tight. Not because of her, but because of him. Because his words weren't filled with worry or fatherly fear. They were drenched in accusation. "You didn't answer. You didn't help. Do you realize what this looks like?" I froze. Not because I was guilty, but because it was the first time I understood what I really was to them. Not a daughter. Not family. A scapegoat. "Dad, I said slowly, my voice shaking but steady enough to cut through. You ignored me while I lay bleeding. And now you call me only because you need someone to blame. The silence on the other end was louder than any shout. And in that silence, I made a vow. I wouldn't cry for them again. Not a single tear. But I would answer this betrayal. Not with rage, but with something sharper. Something final. The next morning, sunlight spilled weakly through the hospital blinds, but I felt nothing. My phone buzzed nonstop. Voicemails, texts, the group chat finally alive again. Not with concern for me, no. Every message screamed only one name, my sister. Find her. Call us back now. You better not be hiding something. I laughed. Not the happy kind, the broken kind that sounds like it should end in tears but doesn't. Because this was the same family who couldn't spare a single ride when I was unconscious. The same people who paraded through malls, shopping bags swinging, while machines kept me alive.
And now they needed me.
I stood slowly, legs unsteady, the hospital gown still hanging loose around my body. I hadn't been discharged yet, but I ripped the 4 out anyway. Pain shot up my arm, but it made me feel alive again. On the bedside table lay the release papers I hadn't signed. I folded them into my bag, grabbed my cracked phone, and walked out. In the lobby, the nurse called after me. Miss, you can't leave like that. But I didn't turn back. Because I knew exactly where I was going.
Not to my family.
Not to comfort them. Not to search with them. I was going to dig into the truth they had hidden for years. The favoritism, the lies, the rot beneath our polished family name. And if they thought I was going to be their scapegoat one more time, they were about to learn. I don't play the victim. I build the fire. I didn't go home. Not to the place they expected me to crawl back into. Instead, I went to the small apartment of the only person who had shown up at the hospital, my college friend, Maya. She looked at me, stunned. You're supposed to be in recovery. I am, I said, my voice steady. Just not the kind you think. On her kitchen table, I spread my phone out, scrolling through the group chat. Every shallow message, every shopping photo while I lay unconscious. And then the desperate flood about my sister's disappearance. It wasn't hard to see the cracks. Her last tagged location wasn't at a mall. It wasn't at some brunch spot. It was outside a jewelry store with a man she swore didn't exist.
And now?
She was missing.
No.
She wasn't missing. She was hiding. But my family wasn't panicking because of love. They were panicking because of money. That man wasn't just anyone.
He was married.
Powerful. Connected. If the truth leaked, their golden daughter wouldn't just fall. She'd drag the whole family name into the mud. That's when the spark inside me lit. They had laughed when I was bleeding. They had cheered while I lay forgotten. Now they needed me to cover for her. And that was my chance. For the first time in days, I smiled, not because of joy, but because revenge had finally taken shape in my mind. I picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen. Not to call my father back. Not to reassure them, but to record. Every lie. Every secret. Every piece of evidence they thought was buried. If they wanted me in this family crisis, then I'd give them a storm they'd never forget. The next morning, I walked back into the house I once called home. Not in shame. Not in weakness. Still in my hospital gown, stitches itching under my skin, I pushed the front door open like I owned it. Silence. Then chaos. My father's voice thundered from the kitchen. Finally, you think you can ignore 64 calls? Do you even care what's happening to your sister? I let the words hang in the air. Then I pulled my phone from my pocket. With one tap, the recording of their frantic messages began to play. Their voices begging, threatening, bargaining. Their secrets spilling. Every head turned. My mother gasped. My father's face went pale. My brother cursed under his breath. Where did you get that? My father snapped. I met his eyes. From the same place I got this. I held up my screen, the photo of my sister, laughing outside that jewelry store, hand-locked with a man twice her age. The same man whose wife, if she saw this, would burn their reputations to ash. Gasps filled the room. My mother clutched her chest. My father lunged forward. You don't know what you're doing. Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. My voice cut like glass. They wanted me weak,
silent.
Now I was their reckoning. I stepped closer, lowered my tone, and let the knife twist. When I lay in that hospital bed, you weren't worried about me. You were worried about your shopping trips, about hiding her affair, about the family's name. Well, now the world will know exactly what this family is made of. The room froze. For the first time in my life, they weren't mocking me. They were afraid. And it was only the beginning. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I set the phone gently on the table, the screen glowing with every piece of proof I had, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Their whispers. Their bargains. My sister's betrayal caught crystal clear. This, I said, my voice steady, is the truth you were so desperate to bury. But here's the thing. I'm done being buried with it. My father clenched his fists, veins bulging in his neck. You wouldn't dare. I smiled, not out of joy, but out of exhaustion that had finally burned into steel. I would. And I already did. Their eyes widened as I explained. Every file, every photo, every voice note. They're not just on my phone. They're backed up, encrypted, and sitting in the inbox of 3 people outside this family. If anything happens to me, if you try to silence me again, it all goes public. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother broke first. You destroy your own blood, she whispered. I turned toward her slowly, meeting her teary eyes.
No.
You destroyed it. I'm just refusing to bleed for you anymore. For once, my sister had no comeback. No smirk. Just panic flickering behind her eyes, the kind of panic that only comes when a carefully constructed facade begins to shatter. I leaned in, my words razor sharp. So here's the deal. You want to keep your secrets, your shopping trips, your lies?
Fine.
But from this moment on, you do it without me. I owe you nothing. Not my silence. Not my loyalty. Not my life. I straightened my back, feeling the weight of years lift. You had your chance to be my family.
You chose yourselves instead.
Now I choose me. And just like that, I turned, leaving them staring at the bomb I'd placed in the center of their perfect little empire. One way or another, it was going to explode. The explosion didn't come in fire. It came in silence. 3 weeks later, their calls went unanswered. Their texts ignored. Their demands dead on arrival. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I simply removed myself from their orbit, and in doing so, stripped them of the control they worshipped. When they finally showed up at the hospital to collect me, they found nothing but a folded gown on the bed and a discharge form signed in my hand. I had walked out alone, into a new life they could no longer touch. But silence is never really silent, because while I stayed quiet, the world did not. My sister's reputation, her endless, curated perfection, began to unravel, piece by piece, as people noticed what I never had to say aloud. Missing money, fake friends, empty smiles. The shopping spree she flaunted that day in the group chat? It didn't stay hidden for long. Screenshots have a way of resurfacing. And my father, the man who mocked, who commanded, who demanded obedience. He found himself standing in rooms where no one bowed anymore. His voice lost its weight. His name, once enough to shield him, began to sound brittle when spoken aloud.
Me?
I didn't gloat. I didn't fight. I simply kept moving forward. Every time my phone lit up with their desperate attempts. Call us back. We need you. This time it's serious. I looked at the screen, and I remembered lying in that hospital bed, forgotten, abandoned, erased by the very people who claimed to be my blood. And then I pressed delete. Not out of spite, but out of peace. The day I walked away in my hospital gown was the day I became untouchable. No raised voice, no revenge plot, no war. Just the quiet power of choosing myself over people who chose me last. And that was the sweetest justice of all. Family is supposed to stand by you in your darkest hour, but sometimes their silence teaches you the loudest lesson. Lying in a hospital bed, waiting for love that never came, showed me that blood alone doesn't define loyalty. My pain was invisible to them while their lives went on, flashing smiles and shopping bags, but that betrayal became my awakening. I learned that self-worth doesn't come from who claps for you in public, but from who rushes to your side when no one is watching. Walking away wasn't bitterness. It was freedom. I stopped begging for scraps of affection and chose peace over chaos. The true family I needed was not the one I was born into, but the one I will build with people who value presence over appearances. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is the one that finally sets you free. ChatGPT said, "If you enjoyed this story and want to see more gripping, cinematic revenge tales, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Don't forget to like the video if it gave you chills or left you speechless, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your reactions. Your support helps us create more intense, real-life inspired stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Stay tuned for the next story, and remember,